Hello and welcome to the Album Man, and it is finally time for Q&A part 2, in which I answer the questions you left me on the video update thing I made after I came back from my hiatus for my traditional summer Q&A. So, still got quite a few more questions to go to, and the first users' questions we're going to be looking at certainly asked quite a few, so let's try and get through. Mr. One Singularity, a long-time viewer, so thank you for your questions, and there's certainly quite a number of them, so let's start at the beginning. What are your favourite King Crimson records? When it comes to King Crimson, they're bands I haven't fully explored as much as other 70s prog bands. I haven't explored them as much as Yes, or Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or Genesis, or many other bands. But there's certainly a band I do enjoy what I have heard of them. My favourite of those has to be Into the Court of the Crimson King. I mean, it's one of prog's great albums, even if Moonchild is also one of the weakest songs just in 70s prog. I really don't like Moonchild. Okay, maybe say it's one of the weakest. There's some pretty bad 70s prog songs, but Moonchild, that really just destroys a lot of the album for me, because everything else is just absolutely stunning, and then Moonchild is like, except the first couple of minutes of Moonchild are awesome, but the rest of it is pretty bad. I also really like Red, which has John Wetton on vocals, and that's very cool. The Stars of Bible Black album, not to be confused with the track of the same name on the album Red. I also think Lizard's a good album, and even in the wake of Poseidon, the second album with Greg Lake, even though he'd actually left the band, he still recorded some vocals for that album, and that's a pretty decent album because it sounds a lot like Into the Court of the Crimson King, so it's no bad thing. Second question he asks is, do you like Mastodon's Leviathan? Well, Leviathan is an album I have very, very recently picked up. Found this 2-disc version for £1, so that's pretty damn cool. I just need to listen to it, honestly. I mean, I've really been getting into Mastodon as of late, particularly after seeing them at Sonosphere. I've really started to, Blood Mountains finally started to click. That's an album I'm really starting to dig a lot now. So yeah, Leviathan, but I think it's concept album, isn't it, based on Moby Dick? So that'd be a really interesting one. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing that, but I can't. Well, some of the songs I have heard, I mean, I know songs like Naked Burn, Aqua Dementia, Hearts Alive, and I like those songs, particularly Aqua Dementia. That's epic. An odd band to ask about, but do you like the Buena Vista Social Club? No, I don't. If you don't know who they are, they're sort of a Cuban band, and they have a sort of a Cuban style of music that it's alright. It's the type of stuff that'd be inoffensive restaurant background music to me. Not something I'd really ever go out my way to listen to. What is your favourite subgenre of metal? I mean, it's tough to name one subgenre I like more than any others. I like a lot of subgenres. So maybe I can't give an absolute favourite, but certainly some of the ones I do like. Of course, classic metal, 70s, 80s, new wave of British heavy metal. Big fan of those type of bands. Saxon, Tigers of Bantang, Iron Maiden, of course, and many more. Doom metal, I listen to quite a bit of, and let's see, post metal, been getting into that a lot. Cult of Luna, Neurosis, The Ocean, Isis in particular, and thrash metal is always great. Slayer, Megadeth, Testament, Creator, whatever, really. So I'd say there's some of my favourite subgenres of metal, and I suppose progressive metal as well. Damn, how could I forget that? Dream Theater, of course, one of my favourite all-time metal bands, and Opeth, even though more progressive death metal. So yeah, hard to pick one genre, but certainly there's a few. Next question is quite a funny one. Do I still dislike Scott Weiland? Now, if you don't know, if you're newer to this channel, I have been vocal before about my dislike of Scott Weiland of Stone Temple Pilots and of Velvet Revolver. My reasons for this are simply I can't forgive him for being in Velvet Revolver. It sounds a bit harsh, I know, but he really ruined that band. Like, it could have been so good. I mean, you have Slash, you have Matt Sorum on drums, you have Duff McKagan on bass, Gilby Clarke on rhythm guitar, and then you have bloody Scott Weiland and his whiny ass voice. Oh, don't like Scott Weiland at all. If you do, that's cool, you know. I honestly don't care if you like, and I hate Stone Temple Pilots as well. Ugh. not a great 90s band. I just dislike all of Scott Weiland's work, honestly, and I just can't forgive him for Velvet Revolver. I can't forgive him. I hope he doesn't bloody reform with them. If they're going to reform, I hope Duff's on vocals, certainly. He now asks, have your thoughts on Queens of the Stone Age changed, especially since the more diversely sounding latest record? Oh, hell yes. They've gone from a band I considered one of the most overrated modern rock bands to a band I freaking love. Like Clockwork, to me, was just the entry point for their music. I Appear Missing. I Appear Missing is just one of my favourite rock songs from the last 20 bloody years. In fact, ever. It's just genius. We're not talking a single 3-minute version, we're talking the epic 6-7 minute, however long it is, version. It's just so well put together. The songwriting is just absolutely phenomenal. And that whole album, I mean, it's such a great album. I Sat by the Ocean, the title track, and many others, just end to end strong album. And then from there I've gone on to check out their other albums, Songs for the Deaf. I've now grown an appreciation for, and it's an album I enjoy a lot. I do find the sort of the radio little interludes a little bit annoying. I really like the music on that album. Era Vulgaris been listening to, and I recently picked up Lullabies to Paralyze. So yes, they're bands I'm getting into an awful lot, and they're just awesome. I have to see them live someday, without a doubt. Okay, a couple of quick questions, again from Mr. One Singularity. I did say I asked a lot. Do you like The Kills? Can't say I know who they are. I listened to them a little bit. No, right? What's your favourite Aussie era Sabbath album? Without shadow of a doubt, their debut. Hands down, their debut album. That album is just utterly amazing. The dawn of metal, dawn of just that doomy, dark sound is just bloody wonderful. If you weren't the album man, what would you be? What does that even mean? If you weren't the album man, what would you be? David? Now, I did say I'd answer any question, all questions, so I have to answer this as well. How do you, this is again from Mr. One Singularity, how do you feel people regard you as the ultimate, genuine, most loved album man on the whole of the internet? Well, considering there's only 2 people with the username TheAIbumMan, it's not much of a competition, considering the other guy doesn't actually make videos, and that's why I have a capital I in album instead of a bloody L. That guy pisses me off so much. Okay, more list of question that makes a bit more sense now. Do you still dislike the death metal growl / snarl type vocals? Well, of course, I used to hate all growls, snarls, screams, etc, etc. But now I definitely come to appreciate them situationally. They're not saying I'm universally like, but you know, really for me, again, Upeth were the band that introduced me to a good use of death growls. Their combination they used on Blackwater Park of growling and clean vocals just really appealed to me, and the balance just introduced me to death growls. And when Mike Michalakafelt does death growls, the song feels like it needs them, and that was the first time in music I'd ever discovered a band who I had felt needs them. I in the past just felt them to be unnecessary, just brutal for the sake of it. But now I definitely understand them a lot more. And again, a song like Baying of the Hounds from Ghost Reveries, I think that's a masterful vocal performance. The cleans and the harsh vocals on that are just absolutely genius. And now I've come to discover harsher vocals in other bands such as The Oceans, recently Pelagio, which I recently saw performed in its entirety, and that was just an amazing show. Bands like Cult of Luna. And I've been listening to bands in 2014 like Behemoth, and as I said in the other video, Iron Monkey, which are a band I certainly wouldn't have thought that I would have liked before, and At the Gate, so I've been enjoying quite a bit, but certainly not all the time. I still can't get into Carcass, Surgical Steel. Still, I find that album too difficult to get into. Am I looking forward to the new Slash album? Of course I am. It's World on Fire. Gina are my favourite band of all time, and Slash my second favourite guitarist, #1 Joe Bonamassa. So I always look forward to what Slash is going to put out, especially Miles Kennedy of Alter Bridge. Hell Fortress was my favourite album of 2013. So yeah, of course I'm bloody looking forward to World on Fire. Finally, thoughts on the new Pink Floyd album. Well, not that recently, I have expressed this before in summary. So yeah, I'll just tell you in summary. So basically, I'm pretty skeptical for the album, though I can't help but have these high expectations because of the name Pink Floyd. But in general, I think it's going to be a pretty crap album. If I'm just going to be blunt. I mean, I haven't heard it, I can't judge. But it's not sounding all that promising. Some sort of ambient, waterless. It's not going to be great. But I'm looking forward to reviewing it a lot. It's going to be an interesting album to listen to. Oh, one last question from Mr. One Singularity. It says, so one more, do you follow any music reviewers on YouTube? If so, who? Well, I've talked about people I follow, quite a few, but this is at the top of my head. Cover Killer Nation, Darren Lark, EKB Thomas the Workaholic, Chainsaw, Midnight Strike 365, Metal Cat, Strongest 19, I'm Master 222, etc, etc, etc. The list goes on. I follow quite a number. This is from Luca Canetti, I think that's how you say his name. Do you like the Little Feat? Well, I looked these guys up and they seem to be some sort of 70s bands. They're pretty cool to chill to, bit jazzy. Not so unactive to listen to, but I do know that Jimmy Page, I know he loves Little Feat a lot. Not really my type of thing, they're a bit too jazzy for my taste. From Phalix Upa, what do you think about Shadowlands by Glasshammer? Glasshammer are interesting, and I know that the current Yes vocalist, John Davison, comes from Glasshammer, and their music, by the bits I've heard of it, I haven't heard the whole of Shadowlands, but I've certainly heard some Glasshammer. They very, very reminiscent of Yes, Genesis, ERP, that type of classic 70s prog rock. I've been meaning to check them out because the 70s prog sound and the sort of 70s prog revival sound is one I like quite a bit. But by what I've heard, I haven't been massively impressed, to be quite honest. It sounds like fairly standard, reworking of 70s prog. And then the question I was confused most about for this whole Q&A, which Shamal's album would you recommend me to listen? I looked on the internet for this band, Shamal, or something. If you know who these people are, please do tell me, because I can't find anything on the internet about them, and I genuinely know nothing about who they are. So I can't really recommend them because I don't know if they exist. Yeah. Okay, some interesting questions from Velvet Head 79. He asked a few questions. Firstly, what do you think the world would be like if George Harrison and John Lennon were the last two Beatles and not Paul and Ringo? Oh, this is quite a tough question, actually. It's hard to say what the difference would be, to be honest. I mean, also, it depends on factors like, say, we had George and John left. I mean, when would Paul have died, for example? Would he have died just like yesterday? Or would he have been, assassinated instead of John? Or, when would Ringo have died? Would he have died when Harrison died? Or, again, it all depends on that type of thing. If they were just the last two left today, effectively Ringo and Paul could have died yesterday. So it's quite difficult. But I have to say that either John or George would certainly be more interesting musically to be alive than Ringo. No, I love Ringo, I do. Ringo traditionally was my favourite member of the Beatles, so no hard feelings against good old Ringo. Yellow Submarine for life. What is your favourite and least favourite genres and why? Well, my favourite's obviously rock, metal, rock, blues, that type of stuff. And my least favourite, I would have to say dubstep. One of my absolute least favourites. I don't like any dub-related band. I've listened to dubstep, I've listened to mainstream stuff, like Skrillex and Deadmau5 and that crap, and I'm sure some people argue that isn't dubstep, but I can't say I really know, but I've heard people say that, and I've listened to some more underground stuff that people have recommended me, and I just don't dislike all of it, quite honestly. Hip-hop, not something I can get into. Again, I've listened to a variety of stuff, from the big hip-hop artists to more experimental ones like MIA, who one of my friends is big into. And another genre, I would have to say country music, I really hate. Which is maybe a bit odd because I love Southern rock so much, and Southern rock certainly takes influence from country. But I can't even get into bloody Bob Dylan's country era, let alone any other country stuff. I mean, Johnny Cash does nothing for me, except for his cover of Head, which is one of my favourite songs of all time, weirdly. Yeah, his music doesn't do anything for me. I just never found a country artist that I can actually tolerate. Folk's pretty cool. I like some folk music, some, of course, Dylan, Donovan, that stuff's pretty cool. But Joni Mitchell, but country? No. There's just something about country really doesn't appeal to me. Not one bit. Next question. If you could save any musician's life and have them dedicate a song to you for doing so, who would it be? This is an interesting one. If I had to decide, I think it'd be pretty cool to save Lemmy's life, because he is just one of the coolest, baddest people in metal just ever. Just one of my absolute musical heroes. I just love Lemmy. I really do. I think he's just so cool. So yeah, I think having freaking Lemmy write a song about you would be pretty epic. Two other questions, and I think we'll end this part of the Q&A. So, what do you think the best album of this year so far is? I need some, and I don't know who else to ask. Wow, I don't like to quite give away my absolute number one favourite. No, you have to wait till the end of 2014, beginning of 2015 for that, I'm afraid. But I'll certainly tell you some of my favourites throughout the year, in no particular order, let me stress. So, certainly some of my favourites. Rival Sons, Great Western Valkyrie, 70s rock done in a modern way, done right, their best album, and I honestly think a classic album, a truly classic modern album. Anathema's Distant Satellites, check out my review of that if you haven't already. It was the last video I posted. Fantastic atmospheric prog rock album. Magnum's Escape from the Shadow Garden, if you like sort of 80s melodic rock from Britain. These guys just own. Mastodon's Once More Around the Sun. Don't really need to say much about this album. Vintage Caravan's Voyage, I think an overlooked release. Again, a bit like Rival Sons, taking that sort of 70s sound, but Vintage Caravan maybe put a bit more of a psychedelic edge on it, and certainly offers something new and interesting to the genre. Behemoth's The Satanist, if you want something a bit heavier, a bit more death metal, but yet still with some melody in it, and some very interesting music. Judas Priest, Redeemer of Souls, for that classic 80s metal. I think off the top of my head, there's some decent ones. Again, if you want some 70s stuff, Blues Pills, new album's pretty decent. Seether's Isolated Medicate, if you want something a bit post-grungy. I've been enjoying that album, need to fully review it. So yeah, there's some of my favourites from 2014 so far, and there's probably many more I've missed out and forgotten, but I'm sure I'll remember in time. Oh yeah, and the last question, what are your thoughts on comebacks in general? This is an interesting question. I find it hard to generalise. I mean, I find it's saying very much on a case-by-case basis. I suppose you have to judge with comebacks. I mean, look at Bowie's comeback in 2013. So freaking pair. It was mysterious, it was sudden, and it was excellent when it came out. Just a fantastic comeback, but I still wish he would have toured. But there's still something cool about the mystery around that. And again, Black Sabbath's comeback was fantastic. They made a new album, came back with the original lead singer. I mean, I would have preferred it Bill Ward, as I'm sure every Black Sabbath fan would, but still live, they put on a hell of a show, and it was just fantastic. Though some comebacks, I don't think they necessarily need to happen. I mean, Pink Floyd, do they really need to be releasing a new album under the Pink Floyd name? Is that really necessary with just Gilmour and Mason, as Rick Wright's dead and Waters not involved? I don't think those type of comebacks are really necessary. I mean, should the Beatles have reformed for the Free as a Bird with Jeff Lynne producing them? Well, when of course after Lennon, so it's just Harrison, Paul and Ringo. Probably not. I mean, I like the couple of tracks they did, but they weren't really necessary. I don't think they needed to reform. I think some bands, it's better off they just don't ever reform. You know, I don't think a band like Pantera should reform. And certainly bands that have lost members like that, maybe they shouldn't. But then again, you know, you could say, would I want Led Zeppelin to reform? Yes and no. Yes, because I'd freaking love to see Led Zeppelin, and I'd love to hear new Led Zeppelin. That would just be beyond amazing. But secondly, it could end up being pretty disappointing. But it's a very, very difficult one, to be honest. I'd say in general, I can't help but like comebacks, especially for me, of classic artists, which I was too young and born after they dissolved. It's cool, but sometimes they can do more harm than good, I would say, to a band's legacy. So this being the TheAIbumMan, in the second part of my Q&A, there will be a third part, I think. So yeah, tune in for that. That will probably be the last part. Can't guarantee it though. So yeah, thanks for watching. Comment, subscribe, and as usual, long live rock and roll.